Alabama, despite, the loss to Vanderbilt, you're 5-1, you're 2-1 in the SEC in a year where it seems like nobody is the best team in the country, but you're sure as hell not with that defense. What would you be feeling right now? Or what would you say to Alabama fans about what they should be feeling right now?
Oh, God, guys. We're just not that good on defense. And it sucks to say, and it's perplexing to me as an Auburn fan. Trust me, it's weird to me to look at, and with the athletes you'll have, and be like, Alabama's not that good on defense.
And got pushed around a decent
You're a
amount.
mediocre defense. But look, at this point in this year, I mean, that's okay. Like, you'll be able to win it because I don't think there's a phenomenal defense other than the team you'll probably play next week. But as good as Tennessee's defense is, it's equally awful on the other side on offense. But, God, man, the one thing we're not used to seeing is Bama not being able to put guys away. Bama was always the team under Nick Saban. Whatever had to happen late in that game to get it done, damn it, they'll find a way. And now it seems like the opposite is getting done. And Kalen DeBoer, it just almost flashed back in my brain, him smiling after beating South Carolina by 2 points at home when you're a 3-touchdown favorite. And then I see a picture of Nick Saban pissed off and they're up 21 in the national championship. There's a standard at Bama, right? And that standard slowly feels like it's falling, even a win, which is crazy. But I will say this, a very underrated football play in this game that not a lot of people are talking about. Big shout out to Malachi Moore. At the end of that game, where that kid caught that pick, if he would have took a knee in the end zone, that would have been a safety. Malachi Moore looking at him before he took a knee and told him to run out.
Would it have been a safety?
I'd have to go back
and
see it. Don't even risk it. Don't even risk it. Yeah,
he caught it at the 2. Like full catch with possession at the 2 and then faded into the end zone. Malachi Moore, we know what happened with Malachi last week. He kind of lost control. Telling him to get out and running out, that is an absolute veteran play. But no Alabama fan watched this game and felt good about anything.
Well, David, I've watched, obviously I'm from Lee County, Alabama, grew up in the Auburn-Alabama rivalry. And ever since Saban took over, I've watched Alabama lose some games. Most of the time, it was because of 2 reasons. One, somebody ran some fluky stuff, and it just worked long enough, and they caught enough breaks, right? Like that Tennessee game a couple years ago where they, scored 45 points or whatever it was, or Johnny Manziel catching a tip off when he tipped it to himself and throwing it up to Mike Evans. I'd seen that. Or the second reason was they just ran into it like a super team that was like them, that had either a couple guys or Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., right? All on the same team. I have not consistently watched Alabama just get pushed around by – and again, South Carolina's got NFL players all over that team. I'm not saying this is a bad South Carolina team. But I watched Vanderbilt and now South Carolina push Bama around a decent amount on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That's, to me, what would give me the most pause. Not that somebody made a crazy catch at the end and kept a foot in bounds, or, there's one guy that's 5'7" that's a 10, 300-meter guy that outran us on a kickoff one time, or when he got a slant. It's that teams are lining up, and Rocket Sanders looked twice his size against Alabama running the ball yesterday. I'm just not used to seeing that, David. Still.
I know. And trust me, that same phrase was going around this household a lot yesterday. I think a couple positives for Alabama are you beat Georgia. You beat Georgia in one of the biggest college football games we've ever seen, which not only bought a new coaching staff equity, but just from a standing standpoint, you have the head-to-head over Georgia in any tie-break scenario now that's going to happen to make the SEC championship game, and they still have to go on the road and play Texas and Ole Miss, okay? So you did that. You followed that up with a loss to Vanderbilt, which we talked about all week, one of the most embarrassing losses of all time. Well, that team just beat Kentucky yesterday. I said they're going to beat more SEC teams throughout the season, and every time they do so, it makes the loss to Vanderbilt a little bit less funny, a little bit less embarrassing. And, you beat South Carolina. It was ugly. So now the question that I think is going to get answered for us for Alabama in the next few weeks is this just sort of a mid-season lull because you're playing SEC SEC competition and, hey, let's just win by one. Let's beat anybody in the conference by 1 point and move on because it's that type of year and everyone else around the country is losing too? Or have people started to figure out the book, right? Has the book gotten out on the Alabama defense a little bit? And honestly, has the book gotten out a little bit on Jalen Milroe? I told you guys I'd play more zone coverage against him than man coverage. You saw that was the pick yesterday. Had a pick against zone coverage. Was getting confused in zone coverage on the safety that got called there when he had to throw it away. So I don't know if the book's getting out or if we're just in a situation where everyone's playing everybody tough because there's so much parity and you got to win by one and move on.
Yes, it's turning into like tournament basketball is what it feels like to me. Like
That's
it's not
a good way to
even
put
just
it,
it's just win by
Survive.
1 point or whatever. It's just surviving to the next week and hope
But
you
those
get
little
hot.
things like the onside kick, like those were things I didn't have to ask.
But, yeah.
When Nick Saban was the coach, I didn't have to like worry about that kind
Well,
of stuff.
Cone, like yes, and you're 100% right, but it's also like, hey, they're running inside zone, and everybody knows they're running inside zone, including Alabama, against South Carolina, and Rocket Sanders is still getting 4.5 yards a pop.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's more wild to me than seeing it, because you used to have to trick Bama, right? You used to have to trick them. You couldn't just line up and run your stuff. You had to trick them. You had to outthink. You literally had to hoodwink them. Like now, you really don't.
You can just beat them.